What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Panthers Nation Network. I know it's been a while, but we're back here at Locker Room Charlotte. We're the only place where you can get dope pieces like this. Look at the inaugural jacket.
Yeah, man. I know y'all. Hope y'all can see it from the camera, but you got a patch right here.
Look at, I got the leather jacket on. I'm a sucker for leather and just any sort of material. And this is crazy with the patch on the wrist.
It's tough.
That's some superhero stuff right there.
Bro, it's tough. Again, like we said before, you really can't find this nowhere else. I don't know how many times I keep repeating it, keep saying it. We've been doing it all year. But definitely, y'all got to get down here and pick up on some of this stuff, though.
And then, not to mention, not only this, but look behind us. This is a vintage sign made for a car dealership. They made an extra one, or they made one that said, "Welcome Carolina Panthers." They had this one. Don't know where the heck the guys here found it. They shipped it on over here. I mean, this is crazy.
Right. Like I said, where else are you going to find this at, man?
You're not. I know JB's tired of us talking about it. He wishes he could be here with us, taking full advantage of the scene.
That's right.
JB, how was your holidays, and how was your time spent not paying attention to the crap fire that is the Panthers?
Well, I'll just say happy Mamba year to my boys over there at Locker Room Charlotte and everybody in the house. Good to see you gentlemen here in 2024. I do want to say that, with those signs and those jackets, it makes me feel better to be a Panthers fan after what we've seen over this past year. Also, what we just saw this past Sunday, not only on the field, but also up in the skybox, which we'll get into, a $300,000 fine, which really doesn't mean much, but we'll go from that point of view and just start kicking it off.
Yeah, we're trying to tap into a bygone era of the Panthers where we were respectable both on and off the field. Could you imagine if Jerry Richardson threw a drink on a fan? Like, you would never see the big cat for everything that was wrong with him. He would never do that. And someone made a joke on Twitter saying he was looking up at us in disgust, which is horrible, awful joke. But probably true no matter where he's looking from. He's definitely looking in disgust because, it was just, we have to start off with it. And now today, $300,000 fine, which I think we did the math on Instagram is 0.00001% of his net worth. Right. That equates to $26.2 billion. Like, it's nothing to him. That is a literal penny.
Again, financially, he'll be fine. The look of it from a team perspective, like, how is this what we've come to? How is this our owner? Like, how is this acceptable behavior? Well, we've come a long way. Not in a good sense either, bro. Because we've been bad before. We've never seen it get like this to the point where we have people that's supposed to be the head man in charge losing their cool completely. The team itself looks like a shell of itself. There's nothing to attach yourself to with this team that can make you feel great right now other than Bryce Young.
No, it's literally the only bright spot. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of, like, when it happened and when I saw it, I was trying to think of other, like, comparable instances to where an owner did something directly to a normal citizen. Because let's be completely honest, they're not normal humans.
The only one is the one at the Titans. The guy who did the obscene gesture to the Bills fans a couple years ago when they did that. I think they scored in the final seconds or something. I have to look up the actual facts, but I'm pretty sure it was the Titans owner. But it was nowhere near as bad as throwing a drink on a fan. And I think this also speaks to what Shontis and I were talking about last episode and the episode before, where we're actually auditioning for coaches. We're actually auditioning for new players. And for them to see this sort of actions being taken at a game in front of guests at a guest stadium, and that's our owner, that's our leader at large. That's unacceptable. And then to top it all off, he didn't even really give it an apology. He just basically said, "Oh yeah, it was unacceptable, and I accept the fees and the fines."
I guess I give him credit for standing on it, though.
It took a big set of cojones to throw a drink at someone. In this day and age, when every phone is someone is recording somewhere. There's security cameras. And what got me is what you said, JB. It's one thing to do this in Bank of America Stadium to, like, visiting fans, but to go into Jacksonville and do it to you're the visitors. You are the guests. And you're thinking that this is a smart move. You're like, be a man, not even a man, but be an owner and a CEO. You can ruin his life in a myriad of ways.
Right.
Under the table.
Do we know? So is there?
Yeah.
There's no context. Suspension?
Is that been handed out?
It is on the table. From what the NFL released earlier today, they were still in discussion with the suspension? Because originally beforehand they said a fine was definite and a suspension was on the table. Then the fine came out. It would take longer. I mean, there's no precedent for this. Right. There's no precedent for an owner to be suspended other than for criminal activity like you saw in Washington.
Well, he should be suspended.
Yeah. Bud Adams. But it was the Bud Adams. It was the Bud Adams $250,000 fine.
Yeah, but Bud Adams, he was that old country boy. He was a cowboy. He was like.
Yeah. But no, there is no precedent. I think the one thing that takes me aback. I mean, out of all the owners, out of all the years, Jerry Jones could have thrown liquor at 1,000 different Redskins or Commanders fans. A Pittsburgh owner or a Ravens owner, Ozzie Newsome, could have thrown many things at the Steelers in their heyday, right? This is coming from a brand new owner into the league who has no sort of, I would say, league lineage.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a minor owner in the Steelers. He's coming in and he's doing actions like this. It's just really is just unfortunate, and it's going to put us even further back to where we're trying to go.
I mean, and like you said, the behavior is unacceptable because if this happened from a player perspective, players get axed. You either, if you depend on what type of player you are, you're getting cut next day, or the suspension you're about to take on is going to be so crazy. It'll probably be possibly up to a year.
I mean, the Packers benched Jair Alexander in a actual game that matters because he went to a coin toss. Cam got suspended for a week for not wearing a tie in a press conference. And Benjamin Watson hit the nail on the head. If this was a player, and we've seen it. We've seen it happen all the time. We've seen Jets players. We've seen, opposing players, they're flicking people off or waving at people. I mean, you think about the Alabama kid who flicked off, and I don't even know where he is anymore at this point in time. And he flicked off a whole fan base. So if this were an owner, yeah, he deserves suspension. I mean,
you don't remember who that was that did that?
Who was that? I can't remember.
Rashawn Golden. You don't remember?
Holy crap! It was, of course, because then we drafted him, which is just par for the course. But no, I mean, he's reaching Snyderian levels of ridiculousness in a 4 to 5 year time frame.
He's reaching these levels just being strictly bad at football.
That's what I'm saying.
This is aside from just being an evil human, he's not even done anything outside of football that's just been bad enough to make us dislike him. It's just been football related. Alone, which is again a generational talent nonetheless.
Look he is probably in the Hall of Fame for just making yourself look like an ass in every step of the way, and for the longest time, it wasn't even for his actions. It was for his inaction or his indirect action. Now it's for your act. Now you are starting to validate the concerns that everyone has had about you from a business and a football standpoint. Because beforehand, it wasn't really hearsay. It was more so he was always so quick to call it, basement talk. But now, I mean, you're putting starters right in the fire.
It started with basement talk, but then it's led to real people that have worked for you leaving you immediately once you've gotten
a migration.
We've seen many people that work in that building on Main Street leave.
Oh yeah,
and not be a part of the organization anymore since he's been there.
And in his business.
Exactly. So I mean, again, this is not by chance. It's not by mistake at all. He is the personality he brings, the energy he brings has seemed to be kind of cancerous to the city of Charlotte.
I completely agree. And
yeah, I think the validation comes from the way he behaves to what we see on the field. It all coincides. I don't think that you would ever in any way, shape, or form see it being imbalance where our owners acting that way and we're winning all of these games, right? I think what we're finding is how he's behaving is just exactly what is transforming on the field. And so that balance of what we would like to see, you don't see it all.
And this happens right at the tail end of the season. First of all, look, we've been losing for 3 months. I don't know how you just got mad enough today to throw a drink on somebody, but at this point now, this happening so close to the end of the year, everybody's getting ready for the new hiring cycle. What does this make? How does this make us look in terms of new candidates that would possibly want a GM job or want a head coach?
Well, that's the thing is that you can talk about Jerry Jones all you want, but outside of it, if he were successful, if his team were successful consistently, or at least above par consistently, he would probably not be talked about nearly as much as he is because he's done very little off the field or in the public eye to retain that sort of criticism. It's just because the play has been so sloppy on the field and so inconsistent that he gets that sort of focus. I mean, we've said this a couple weeks ago. You're not supposed to know who the owners are off the top of your head. You're not supposed to be like talking about the owners on a weekly basis. And that's why he has, tried to lean into this 24-hour news cycle. But the other thing that shows, especially from a coach and GM standpoint, you don't say anything. You don't make a statement. And Albert Breer said this on Twitter. Team availability starts tomorrow. There'll be press conferences tomorrow. Tabor's going to have to go up to the podium tomorrow. Any media member worth their salt is going to ask about the clip. And now you put your interim head coach in a position where he has to talk about it. And no matter what he says, it's not going to look good. At the very best he can hope for is, plausible deniability and just kind of brushing past it with generalities and colloquialisms. That's the only thing he can do.
Like, hey, look, I was coaching the game.
I was 50 feet down below.
Have no clue what that's about. We just move forward from there. That's all you can say. Bro.
Now you make your PR team look bad. You make your social media team look bad. You make your own or your GM, your coach, your player. Like every single person who's going to be in front of a camera tomorrow, and probably Thursday and Friday as well, will be asked about the situation, and none of them will have any sort of answer that is, actually worth a damn.
Well, yeah. Well, if this is any idea as to what's been leaking out of the locker room and what we've been hearing as players and other old coaches have left, and you start hearing the kind of the Hunger Games mentality and what it was. If this is any indication, like if you had any doubt, this is just that further validation that yes, all of this was going on. Yes, this is a toxic work environment. Yes, as a GM, as a head coach, you have a owner who throws temper tantrums and is not afraid to address a fan head on at a guest stadium. I would love to see him try that in Philly.
Oh my God.
I would love to see him try that in Philly.
I would have dragged that man up out that stadium.
Oh, we see what they do when they're happy with a person, when they're excited about a person. We've seen what they've done to people that they are not so enthused with. And that's the thing. Like, to go into an enemy territory, it's not like you've been winning at all. Like, it's a temper tantrum.
That's what my thing was. I'm like, bro, like, you all of a sudden got mad. Like, today was like the tipping point. Like, really? Like, I thought it would have been Chicago against Tyson Badgett. Like, that would have been the day I would have thought, oh, man, it's everything.
Yeah.
But, like, today against Jacksonville, like, bro, this has been the entire season.
Or against the Colts, where you've taken from them what was supposedly the scapegoat, and then it still falls flat in your face and get embarrassed by the Colts nonetheless. Like, you've been embarrassed every single week. Now, don't get me wrong. Getting shut out for the first time since 2004 sucked. That was awful to watch, especially against a team that was limping and did not have their starting quarterback. I mean, CJ Beathard made your defense look ridiculous. They didn't play poor, per se, but they definitely didn't play to the standard and the caliber of which they played against. I mean, they played poor. I'm trying to look on the bright side, all right? The morale can't be that high in this building. Someone has to be at least providing some sort of positivity for them.
No, it was bad.
It was bad.
I'm
trying to keep guys here, okay?
Yeah, Jack, I was getting ready to say, Jack, 26 points,
brutal.
0 in the end zone,
brutal.
And we were in the red zone.
On the 2-yard line. Offense has so much to answer for. I'm talking for the defense specifically. I'm talking for the defense specifically.
Well, I'm just saying in general. Yeah. The defense in general, I mean, they are just tired of getting beat up on. They're tired of being on the field. They play 70% of our games for all 16 weeks for now. They've been on the field 70% of the time. There's no way you're telling me anything different. We can't hold the ball. The defense is always on there. They're tired. They're getting beat up. But 26-0. And I mean, they beat us in all categories: rushing, passing, time of possession, total yards. I mean, they outgained us by like 200 yards in total offense. I mean, it was absolutely despicable. I don't think we didn't have 100 yards in rushing. We didn't have 100 yards in passing. No. We had 57 yards in passing, if I'm not mistaken.
And the reason why I know that
we just got beat all.
Bryce Young ruined my prize picks.
I mean, to be in his defense, that was not a prize pick you should have put up.
It was only one. He had to get 149. I said, hey, look, Bryce Young can get me 149. On a bad day, we can get me 149. Now, I didn't think about it thoroughly.
I was going to say, we've seen some bad days where he's gotten nowhere close to 149.
I was like, damn, bro, maybe I didn't think about how bad this could get. I was unaware.
Okay. But am not a Bryce Young apologist. I'm not. And
No, he was bad.
he was bad. But to still sit there and say on Twitter that he is the main problem and that his flaws are so much more glaring than everybody else.
The main problem is that boy y'all drafted that played up the street from her.
But we were all so high on. Don't act like you weren't.
For me, no, I wasn't. Yeah, bro, I swear to God, I didn't even watch that drive. You remember that?
You didn't watch the draft before it either.
No, I did watch the draft before that.
Oh, we went live on that one. We went live on that one. You
Draft,
didn't, because I called you. You were asleep.
I was definitely asleep. I'm like, I guess, like, hey, y'all boys, I guess this is the one.
We're gonna go back in the tapes. I'm gonna find the enthusiasm in his voice from past recordings. I'm gonna go.
When y'all tell me y'all picking the offensive lineman first, I lose all excitement.
And the precedent does not really work out in our favor in that regard, because there's a lot more horror stories than success stories when it comes to linemen drafted that high. But I mean, this is more than a sophomore slump.
This is real.
Like
oh no. This is a total debacle. This is a total explosion internally. I think you're going to find out a lot more after the last game of the season and we go clear out our lockers. I think from the mood and the attitudes you will see, you will get a feel of disgust. You'll get a feel of disdain. You'll get a feel of a lot of tension. You'll get a feel of a lot of unfulfillment. You're going to get a feel of a lot of people walking, a lot of unexpected people walking. I'd be surprised if we can get Scabs to come play for us next year on the way that we've behaved as an organization and the way we behaved in the front office. I think there's a lot of things to be said. So the only way to mend this is to go out and get a high dollar coach. And to be quite frank with you, I have one in mind that I really want. And I've got a couple of GM prospects that I've been looking at since Shontis and I had a conversation the last couple of weeks over GM prospects. I kind of did a little bit of homework going back to an old article and just kind of reading through their prospects. I think we've got some things out there that could come through. But for the most part, man, I think we're going to see a lot of people disgruntled. There's going to be a lot of people walking out that are going to be disgruntled, and that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how there's any other way that you could walk out at this point in time, because the icing on the cake of all of this now is that coming to our stadium, Baker Mayfield is going to be walking in on Sunday with a chance to clinch the division, which the fact that, I mean, they were in the mix to clinch it all is ridiculous, and the fact that the division has still yet to be taken over is also just so sad. But that's just like the poetic ending, right? That Baker Mayfield's the one coming in to now try to take the division, and almost a complete opposite of what the game was last year. Cut Baker Mayfield, you're playing for a chance to try to make the playoffs, not clinch the division, but against the Bucs, you went there, get blown out. And now with, CJ Henderson being a healthy scratch every single week, JC, I mean, he went out for a little bit, but he finally came back in. Our defensive backs are not going to look anywhere near what we want them to. Mingo's on IR, which, I mean, cool. But at this point, why even put Bryce Young in the game for me?
I really wouldn't. I think I've seen enough. He's not going to get any more development in this last game than he's gotten.
Especially against that front seven.
Yeah, I'd sit him. There really is no purpose to it. I'll be honest.
I mean, because that hit was
hit
was scary.
He almost died. Yeah, he almost died on Sunday. So I would definitely pull him.
It's irresponsible at that point if you keep playing him, to be completely honest. And if he had played like the same way he played against the Packers last week, I could maybe see it, just to continue to push the rhetoric that he is what he is and what we all know he can be. Because even like I said, I mean, the overthrown balls to Mingo, they were bad, but he also threw 3 passes right to Mingo that Mingo just didn't even come around with.
Right. I mean, success for Bryce isn't going to be linear. Like, it's going to be weeks like Green Bay where it looks phenomenal. Then it's going to be weeks like Jacksonville where it looks like it can't get any worse than this. He's overall, I can tell that he's improved, but it's just each and every week it doesn't look that way. But a lot of that has to do with, external factors. But for him, I think I've seen enough. The amount of hits he took last week, I thought he was going to get pulled after the first half.
Honestly, I don't know why in the world, because it's up in that point, there was nothing that they were doing offensively to show that it was going to be like a blowout. All of the points they got were garbage time points that just didn't matter anymore, because what the hell else were we doing? But Andy Dalton could have gone out there and would have gone out there and given you the exact same performance that Bryce Young did. There's not much worse he could have done. And after those first 2-3 hits that Bryce took that were absolute, just like WWE Monday Night Raw, throwing him through the grass, I was just like, there's no reason for it. The way he was slumped like that in that first one, oh my God, I was like, you got to take him out. And so this week, yeah, there's like, because this is another issue for Fitterer. We got Andy Dalton for his ability to go into any situation and play well and play, to a serviceable level. Why have we not done that at any point in time, especially once the season got out of hand and any sort of postseason got out of reach? Other than development.
Yeah, this CEO was all about.
Well, I think it's a mandate from up top.
Oh, of course,
I think it's a mandate from up top. I think Tepper's saying, you know what, right, wrong, or indifferent, we're going to ride our boy all the way to the end, to the finish line. I don't think that there was any conversation around, well, maybe we should pull him after week 7, week 8. We're not in any position to protect this young quarterback, this investment of ours. So, I mean, even for that, it's even trying to save face and put butts in those seats, to be quite frank with you, which he hasn't been successful in doing either.
Right, and like you said, that mandate did probably come from up top.
Oh, it absolutely did.
The last thing you can do is pull the quarterback that we spent all of this capital on to get. DJ Moore is gone, the number 1 pick is gone, everything is gone, and he's not playing. Can't do it. He was already pinned to a situation where he was gonna have to play no matter what once that trade was made.
I agree with you in that regard. My question, though, is, playing devil's advocate, is what did we see from him continuing to play this year that we couldn't have, that we either didn't already see from the first part of the season, to where from before it got out of hand to now that it's got out of hand, what did we see in him that we didn't already know?
Well, I tell you this, Jack. I say this, and I'll let Shontis speak on it. For me, I can tell you, I have seen improvement week over week. To Shontis's point, it's not a linear progression, right? He's had his ups and his downs, but the Green Bay game showed us all of the glimpses that we knew Bryce could be and what he can become, right? Even some factions of that ugly Atlanta Falcons game, right? We saw some factions in that game that were like, oh, okay, Bryce is starting to slow down in certain aspects. I think the one thing that we did not rest more onto is that Bryce needed these failures to help him grow, a resilience, but he doesn't need to die because of it, right? And so right now you're looking at the last 3 weeks of the season, and what are you risking? Are you trying to risk next year? Like, is that what you're really trying to do? Because right now, not only are you going to probably risk next year, you're going to, damage his ego even more than it already is. So you have to kind of put these things in the correct buckets and start looking further down the road. Now, the frustration that was shown by our owner, that could be a bunch of different things coming into play, right? We don't know the backstory of the actual throw of the drink. Not excusing it at all. But what I'm saying is, you got Bryce Young. You're getting critiqued over the amount of capital you gave up to get Bryce Young. The performance over the year, which has not come true. C.J. Stroud looks like he should be a rookie. He should probably get Rookie of the Year. Could almost be until about 4 weeks ago, he was in talks of actually being an MVP candidate. So you're dealing with all of these critiques and these criticisms. You fired your third coach. You've got another scapegoat coach in there who knows he's not going to be here next year. And you got huge problems from a salary cap perspective in signing Brian Burns, Louvu, and the rest of these cats. So there's a lot of things going on. I think for going forward, if you do put Andy Dalton in, just understand, Andy Dalton may not be here next year either.
Oh, no.
Let's be 100% honest, right? So there's a lot of things that are coming into play, and I would not put Bryce Young. I would have him in sweatsuits with a headset on the side on the side.
That's also something we've kind of glossed over as well. In the year of the backup quarterback, how much do you think he is kicking himself? I mean, obviously hindsight's 2020, but he could be on 10 to 15 teams right now with the ability to play for playoffs and a big bonus check.
He would have definitely played this year. Where'd he play? Where'd he come from last year?
He was from New Orleans. But he also had experience in Cincinnati, he could have gone to Cleveland.
He would have
Dallas.
I was saying he could have played in Cleveland. He could have played in Tennessee. He could have played in New York. He could have played literally any situation where a backup quarterback is playing. Yeah. Oh my God, Minnesota.
Oh,
he'd fill right in. He's Ginger Kirk Cousins.
He'd actually make Minnesota.
That's what I'm saying.
Out right now.
There are at least 6 to 7 scenarios where he could be playing for a $1 million bonus of some sort and playoff potential, and he is now sitting the bench watching, the ghost of Christmas past getting beaten down every freaking week, knowing that there's nothing that he can do about it because they won't let him. Because what you said, JB, about not damaging his ego, I agree with. But if we learn anything from Cam, I would much rather damage his ego than damage his body. And it's what's going to happen if over the summer it comes out that he sustained 3 Tua-like concussions. I mean, we saw now Marquise Haynes went to the hospital. Yeah. Thank God he's all right. Hayden Hurst got amnesia from the amount of hits he was getting and the severity of the hits. What happens if in the summer we hear Bryce Young actually took 3 concussions over the year and is now in jeopardy of playing even further?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like you said, when Mingo going on IR, the first thing that popped into my head when I saw Bryce go down was, damn, bro, we literally may ruin the all season.
That's what I'm saying.
Side ruining, like, this year's already a wash. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely not. It's just not worth the risk at all to play him. I mean, again, like, somebody in that building has to take responsibility and actually trying to protect the kid from himself, and that's what we didn't do with the last franchise.
That's what we've been doing consistently.
And so, if you want to change the course of history, you got to start doing some things differently. Take him out and sit him. Like I said, there's no benefit to playing him in this game anyway. Like, I mean, the only benefit will be if we won.
But even then, I mean, you're not. We've already secured the number 1 pick for Chicago. That's not going to change no matter what. So a win, other than honestly, it hurts you because then scheduling wise, you're going to play whoever sits in those seeds regardless. If you win a game somehow, change their echelon of who you'd be playing against, you have a tougher schedule there, and I don't think we're going to move out of the 4th spot at any point. But strength of schedule, the wins you're going to get, like a win actually really does nothing for you other than. I mean, I can't imagine 3 wins is any sort of bonus or any sort of incentive on anybody's contract unless they're getting paid, incentives per win. Tabor might be getting that as an interim. That's the only person that I think would benefit from a win. Like, I think Bryce's confidence is something that we do need to try to build up. But at this point, like I said, I mean, and I'll say it for every game, since Reich honestly was fired, like, I did not see, once Reich was fired, Christensen and Corbett go on IR. For me, that, when those 3 things happen and you're now in an interim staff, if you thought it was so, apparent to get rid of your coach midseason, in my mind, that should then follow suit with a decision to then try to protect that future that you invested so much in by, I mean, we're lucky he didn't tear an ACL. We're lucky he didn't sustain, major concussions, especially in a game like Atlanta where it's literally playing in the Amazon. Yeah. But, I mean, to look outside of that, I think that, like you talked about, the people that will be here, it won't be half the team. I mean, half that offense that you spent all that time curating will be gone. Yeah. It's just, they can't, there's no reason to keep them. There's no reason to, like, at this point, Tommy Tremble's and Tavon Sullivan are the only tight ends I'm keeping.
Right.
Miles Sanders made a bit of a push, but not for the money we're giving him. Chark, sorry, buddy. Like, you, too little, too late. Mingo, we're stuck with you. Thielen will be lucky if he stays, because, again, and he's another one of those guys that he's probably kicking himself if he had stayed, or had gone to, I mean, he didn't have nearly as much of an upside.
The thing for Thielen is that he did build up his cachet in terms of, if I go back out into free agency, people will at least think that he can still produce at this type of clip.
Well, I mean, there were people trying to trade for him, before the trade deadline. So, I mean, he's definitely built back up his cachet, to your point, Shontis. I think, the one thing that shit show there is, excuse my French on that, is that, Thielen wants to play for a competitive team, right? We have not been competitive all season. We have not been competitive since the last days of the man who shall not be named, because we know his name very, very well. I have a huge issue in that the audition that we've given as an organization is going to do much more detriment than anything else that we've done. Oh, yeah. And I'm not talking just from the players on the field. I'm talking for the organization as a whole. Like, it's like, let's think about this. And this is what I was kind of alluding to the last couple of weeks too. As many times, as many years as the Browns and the Lions were absolutely abysmal, right? There was not one point in time in there where you didn't think that organization was melded together and trying, right? Like, you could go to the Browns and say, y'all might be garbage. Y'all might not have the right people on your staff, but you at least are trying as a whole to make it happen. We look like a bunch of bag of cats trying to figure out what's our next home. Like, we just have no direction at all. Our owner looks like he's sitting in the corner in the principal's office, sitting there all the time like Mikey, waiting on his name to be called for the 10th time this week to go to ISS. Like, that's what we're dealing with right now. Petulant child. And it's a problem.
I didn't think I realized how important ownership was to the overall operation. Of course, when I got older, but I guess throughout all the years of being a fan, I didn't realize that, hey, like, you know, say what you want to about Jerry Richardson, but there was at least stability and there was at least a sense of identity with this squad, no matter what, whether we were
respect.
No matter how many years we went 7-9, 8-8, we always had that sense of identity of what we were gonna be. And now it's just the fact that everything that's permeating that's negative about this organization is coming from the owner. Yeah. This is different. This is a little bit tougher to get out of. It's different when it's just a bad coach and just a bad staff. We can get rid of that and get a new one. We're not getting.
There's nothing we can do. There's literally nothing, because everybody's like, oh, you know, petition to get him fired or for him to sell the team. Maybe the NFL will force it. The NFL cannot force. If they didn't force Dan Snyder to sell that team, they're not gonna force David Tepper to sell this team. And like, exactly, because Richardson.
Oh, he'll throw a drink on him.
Yeah, I mean, look at
Richardson.
He did what he was supposed to, right? There was a lot he didn't do, but for an owner standpoint, he stayed up in his box and he shut up. You did not hear Jerry Richardson talk more than 3 times in his tenure of owning the Panthers, and that was when he bought them, when he sold them, and a couple other times in between head coaches, what have you. Like, you did not hear from the man. Because you weren't supposed to.
I'm upset. I know what David Tepper's voice sounds like.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that was the issue we had with Matt Rule and him at the same time. Both of you, if you just stopped talking, could have saved yourself 30% of the trouble that you got yourself in. Now, I mean, it doesn't matter what Tepper says. And I keep waiting for him, like, after the press conference where Wright got fired and how, you know, much of a crapshoot that was, I keep waiting for him to realize the error of what he's done. And I don't know why I think that, because he hasn't done that in any other facet of being an owner. He continues to do the same thing over and over, thinking that it's going to work. But I keep waiting for him to not do it, and then he does it something even worse. Like, he's finding new and innovative ways. That's what he's done, new and innovative. We're not mediocre when it comes to making fools of ourselves. We have gone outside of mediocrity in that regard. So he's kept true on his promise for that front. We are not mediocre anymore. We're below it on the field, and we're above it off the field.
So, Jack, it goes back to what you and I were kind of discussing before we came on tonight, and I'm a firm believer in this. And I don't know if you guys remember when he first bought the team, and I said we cannot deny the fact that he could try to make it so bad that he wants to move the team. And so my thought process still remains the way that he's behaving now. He's already lost South Carolina. They're all Falcons fans now,
yep, they're all gone.
So he's already divided them from that perspective. Now you got North Carolina and an ultimate fan base, and now you've actually turned this fan base against you. Now you got 2 strikes. Now the third strike, you going into another market and you turn straight ASS, those drinks on people, and now you're seen as a villain and a bully outside of the state. So now you've got all of these 3 facets of you, none of which are positive. So it's going to be real easy if he says, you know what, I'm not getting the support I need. I'm done. I'm moving the team. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to happen. It's going to be quite hard for him to do that. But I'm saying he is making a very, very good case to make this a truth.
And you talked about it a little bit, and to kind of put a different view upon it, like, it would have been one thing if he went to a fan base or a market that is historic for being dicks, you know, Philadelphia, Dallas, you know, the bigger markets that are notorious, like the Packers fans that are for being, you know, precocious, like just dick fans. Jacksonville might be the one market where they are more upset over their team. Like, everyone, when they talk about relocation, it's always Jacksonville to London. Like, that is the first team that's mentioned. So you went into a place that they don't even care about their team, and you took it.
I've never met a Jacksonville fan.
I have never met a Jacksonville Jaguars fan.
There's 2 fan bases I know for sure I've never seen a fan of, and that's Jacksonville and Tampa.
Yeah.
I've never met fans from those 2 fan bases.
Yeah, neither have I. And what makes it worse is that also, like, from the way the video was recorded and the jersey he was wearing, it took a good 3-4 hours for people to figure out whether or not it was a Panthers fan or a Jaguars fan that he threw the drink on. And the worst part about that is that equal options were believable. Both options were equally believable that he could have thrown a drink on a Panthers fan or a Jaguars fan. Yeah. That should not be something that is easy to come to for an owner of that team. That's not an outcome that should be so easy to come by. But you talk about just, the other things that he's done. As far as moving the team goes, I mean, we've talked about this and people have asked about this. There's a path for it, but it would be years in the making. It would take coordination from... Because the only way he's going to go is if he takes the team to Germany. They're not going to move... The NFL's not going to move a team to San Diego, to Oakland, or to St. Louis. Listen, hold on. Let me finish. Because I'm serious. Because the only markets in the NFL are in the country right now that are set up for an NFL team that would have better ratings or a better, welcome party than Charlotte would be San Diego, Oakland, or St. Louis, purely because they have held the team in the past.
Right.
You're not sending a team to a new market or to another team to a New York or Dallas. It's not going to happen. There's not any reach for it. And you're also not going to find a better melting pot now than Charlotte. Like, from a monetary standpoint, he's not going to go to any of those markets and make as much money as he has been making for other facets of what he's been able to do. The only place he could do is go to Germany. And I say that because if he is this petty as we've seen him act, and he knows how impatient the Panthers fan base is because we've been waiting damn near long enough, the best case scenario for him as a businessman is to take the team to a market that is just happy to have football consistently. Right. We've seen from the few games they've played in Belgium that they fill the stands, they're singing country roads, like it's a sellout every time. And so the fans, if they got a team in Germany, would just be so damn happy to have a team every week. They could care less about what's going on the field. They could care less about the success rate because they're getting consistent football. They would sell the damn thing out. The Panthers are also one of 3 organizations in the NFL that have a partnership with NFL Germany. There are 3 organizations. It's us, I want to say, and I can't say the other 2 off the top of my head, but we're one of very few that has a business partnership. Not even just a fan base, like, we have a roaring riot in Germany. No, we sent Johnny Hecker and a good 10% of our staff over to Germany for a week over the summer to commiserate and to, establish a fan base there. We know from our podcast listeners, we have a listening in Germany. Yeah. We have a listening and a following in Germany. Mm-hmm. So that is where I would see him going off the top. Now, what would have to happen in that regard is a partnership with the NFL. I mean, they would have to approve of that and change the entire landscape of how they would schedule games, bring teams in,
Because, with that, with moving the team to Europe.
Yeah.
Would that not have to coordinate? You would have to make a new division.
Well, so that's the biggest thing that's keeping the NFL.
That's the biggest thing that's
keeping the NFL just in its parking space right now. Is you can't do it like you did in the 80s and the 90s, where you just add like a 5th team to a division. Like the NFL is too full of itself now and too established to do wonky crap like that anymore. Right. Like it worked in the 90s and the 80s.
But that's the end of the league growth and experimentation.
If you want to do it, you have to add 7 new teams. Now, they've already talked about putting the Jags in London because they played every game there every year since they've started. Right. And the Jacksonville fan base is the only other fan base that is more angry with their team. And that still simmered down a little bit when the team was doing well. Now that it's kind of, teetering off, it's kind of coming back. But yeah, it would take a lot. And the other thing is that I can't imagine with how much of a miser he has been from a business standpoint, I can't imagine the city would allow him to keep running the FC here in Charlotte and then run a Panthers team in Germany. So he would probably have to move or dissolve the FC as well. Moving an FC team, a soccer team, into any league in Germany is impossible. You don't just walk into Germany or Europe and say, I want to put a team here. That's not going to happen. Right. So there's a lot of roadblocks in that regard, and I don't think he would, from his ego and pride, run a team in Charlotte and then run a team in Germany. So I think that does well as well. But if he gets his coaching decision wrong, if he gets his GM decision wrong, and Panthers and continues to act like he is, the fans will stop showing up. I don't care how much of a diehard fan you are. Yeah. And I don't care how long the Browns dealt with it. They will, the Charlotte fans, the majority are fair weather. We've seen that. We know this. And it's gotten better after the Super Bowl run. but because of that Super Bowl, has also been more patient and more, we knew what we could be. Right. We want to get back to that. So even the worse for weather fans are going to start selling their PSLs. Yeah. And no one's going to buy them.
No doubt.
That's my 2 cents on his leaving. But I do think that we've seen it with the Bobcats and the Hornets. Like, the city played ball and the fans played ball with the Hornets, and he said, all right, I'll take him and dip. Y'all don't like this team. You don't get to have him anymore. So it's not like, and it's funny that Charlotte's the only other city where you've really kind of seen that, where the owner was like, yeah, y'all don't appreciate me. Y'all are so impatient. I'm just going to dip. And then we got the karmic curse of the Bobcats for the next 7-8 years. So there's a precedent set for it.
But I got 2 markets. But I do have 2 markets for consideration. And I'm not saying it's an easy feat by any means. I think the international one is, as you spoke about it, I think that's a larger feat because there's so many different mechanisms that have to be pulled for that. Because when you talk about travel, days in between, bye weeks, how to be able to balance those out, that's a big thing to do when you have a whole conference over there, right? So you're going to have to take a team over there and they'll spend about a month over in Europe to do that cycle.
Yeah.
Right? You'll take a conference over there and do that cycle. So that's a whole nother conversation. And I think that that's a larger international play that they're trying to put together. But if you're talking just to stay where we are right now, United States, I can think of 2 markets that if he's got the money to do it, they would probably take his money. Oklahoma and Memphis.
Ooh.
I can see both of them. Taking
Memphis claims the Titans
Panthers
a little bit
to build out. But if you're saying if David Tepper is coming in there with a brand new team and you've got 2 teams in that state, it's no state tax. 1.
Yeah, that's fair.
2, it's right in there, right? You got that NFC conference. And then in Oklahoma
City could definitely sustain
Oklahoma's a big one.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City's another one, right? You've got NBA already there, right? They have a huge following out there. And it's right neck and neck with that Texas, Arkansas, big football country, right? So those are the 2 markers that I could see actually making a play if, for some odd reason, if David Tepper continues to be this petulant child that we see, somebody who thinks he's bigger than the game, somebody who's bigger than the rest of the owners, somebody who thinks he can just beat on his chest and things are going to go his way. If he really, really wants to stick it, he can make a proposition to move it to those cities and states. So those are just what I was going to say to you, Jack. Like, it's a long shot, but if you're talking about staying locally, stateside, I see those 2 markets being 2 markets that are intriguing.
So the lucky part, I think, for us in terms of, not having the worst happen is that, like, there was a play for it. Like we said, every article I've read and a lot of Reddit threads that I've read that pull from sources throughout the league and the board was the plan has been for the longest time, especially since the international bouts have started, was to put 2 teams in London, both one in Wimbledon and then one in Tottenham Hotspur, one in Germany. Now that you've had Belgium and they played another place in Germany. I can't remember where for the life of me. And then a team in Canada. Now the Canada play has always been. I mean, they're the only league that doesn't have a team in Canada. And that's majorly because of Canadian Football League, as rightly so. And the Canadian Football League doesn't give a damn about the NFL. They don't want to.
Right.
So it's not like you're going to take a team from the CFL and bring them over here. But there is a precedent set for having a team in Toronto. I mean, there's literally every other sport has a team in Toronto. Then the other side of it, so you'd have an NFC, like an AFC international division. So where that way their divisional play is against each other. So that way half of their season is traveling. But that creates a huge you're going to get so much jet lag. And it could be just as much, they say, as, going East Coast to West Coast, as much as those teams do. Like, stopping in the middle, staying in a hotel somewhere for that week so you don't have to fly back. And so what their thought process was, especially now with the added week, is to go back to 17 weeks, but have, 18 weeks of play still, but then have 2 buys so that you get your normal bye and then your international bye. So any team that has to go play them then gets a bye week. So they don't have to then go play. Because could you imagine playing an international game and then playing a Thursday night game?
Good God.
Like, it's impossible. You couldn't do that. So they then thought for scheduling purposes, you either do 6 months at home, 6 months away for the international teams. Or like you were saying, a month away, a month at home, a month away, a month at home.
Right.
Neither are ideal, but if you want to make it happen, that's what you do. Then the other side of it would be an NFC Central division where you try to either put new teams in St. Louis, Sacramento, Oklahoma City.
So I want to talk about St. Louis. So the real reason they had an issue with St. Louis, right? If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong. One, the state didn't want to help them with any sort of facilities. They
No.
really ixnayed on that, and then also with that too was everything having to do with the fandom,
Yeah.
right? So the fandom had really wavered right after the Greatest Show
Yep.
on Turf. Right after that, right after those years with Dick Vermeil and those guys, they were really looking at, they weren't getting the fulfillment there. So I think there's a bigger issue in St. Louis just
there
in
definitely
general,
is.
right? I really Sacramento, I don't see that being a big move for them because obviously and truthfully, you had the Oakland Raiders there. They couldn't even sustain the Oakland Raiders, and that's only
Yeah.
a 2 to 3 hour drive, if that. So I don't see that being a big play. The reason I brought up the Memphis one is really the state tax.
Yeah.
That's really intriguing for any owner to go and get that done. And then the Oklahoma piece is because there were rumblings, if I'm not mistaken, when they were talking about the Vikings and the Bills, if they didn't get their new stadiums or weren't going to get any sort of agreement there, Oklahoma was trying to bid or really was trying to come into the fold. So that's why I really mentioned those two markets. And I think, considerably, if you think about it, I don't see that being too far-fetched because they could still be NFC South, right? You just have a Midwest team.
So the second factor going into it was, it's incredibly hard to start a new team, to find owners to finance a new team, to then provide to build the facilities, to bring in the new logoing, all that kind of stuff. So their second and their hope was that they could do what they did in the 80s and pull some teams from the USFL when it went under, or when they were, when it was doing really well, and then made the moves to go under. Problem with that is, with the second time around, is it was doing well to a point, and then the pandemic kind of screwed everything up, especially with the USFL and the XFL. So now their biggest hope is that with the merger of the two, it might facilitate them to be a bit professional enough and long-lasting enough to where they could do some sort of, a promotion like, the NBA did, like the NFL did back in the day. So where you could pull, the top 4 teams from the XFL, USFL, whatever the hell it's going to be called, into your NFL now. Because at the time, they were hoping for, they were thinking Birmingham. They were going to pull up Birmingham. They were thinking of, there was another one, whatever the Dragons were. They were thinking to pull them.
Seattle?
Yeah. Or was it Seattle that was the Dragons?
I thought it was the Seattle Dragons.
I think it was and then they were thinking of.
I thought it was the Birmingham Dragons.
No, Birmingham.
I thought it was the Birmingham Dragons.
Well, God Almighty, there was a Birmingham in XFL and there was a Birmingham in the USFL. They were so much crossover, but they were thinking putting a team in Portland or putting a team, in some of these other using the USFL teams to make it more financially responsible to do. But now that those have gone, down the wayside, they don't really have a leg to stand on. All that to be said is that I don't see Tepper being above moving the team, but it's going to take a lot more than it did, for teams to move. The last time a team has moved was
the Oakland and Vegas. That's the last one we've seen.
Yeah, but those, I'm talking the last time a team was moved for a
Ravens. It was the
Ravens are probably.
It was Cleveland Browns. It was when Modell.
Yeah, that'd be the last time you saw a true picking up and moving to a brand new market. Vegas was a new market, but
it's still
not really. Yeah, and it's Vegas. And moving to LA, that was something that I was surprised it hadn't happened already, because you have 2 hockey teams, you have 2 basketball teams, you got 2 soccer
LA
teams.
Vacant for that long was kind of crazy.
It was.
I'm not gonna lie.
And they've been trying so hard to get a team into LA for so long. And every time it was the Browns, they were trying to put the Browns in LA, and that was a big issue of, I think the owner died, and then that put the kibosh on the deal, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember what the issue was, but that was the biggest move. And so, yeah, it's been decades since you've seen a team move like that. And so I don't think that he has the ability to do it. He's got the money to do it, but that's also the other thing, is that we all know how much you have, how many finances you have, and how much money you have. To sit there then to say, I want Rock Hill to help me pay for this facility, I want Charlotte to help me pay for a new stadium. You could build a new stadium and it would put a maybe 10% chunk, if that, and that's if you went all out on your stadium.
Well, we know about billionaires, and the boy's cheap.
But it's not like he's retired. It's not like he's stopped making money. He's got consistent cash flow for the rest of his life.
Look,
if you really were the guy you say you were and the businessman you'd say you were, it would cost you could build your own stadium in 3 years and have nothing, and it would forever indebt the city of Charlotte to you, because you went and did this thing that is unprecedented and unheard of.
Man, that means you would have to care about being indebted to the city. And as we've seen, I don't think the care is only there for his ego.
He thinks the city's indebted to him. Right. He said it multiple times.
Exactly. So like, he don't care about whether the city like love him like that. Like, man, he care about getting his money and whether he felt like he a good owner. He knows right now, like, everybody thinks you're a terrible owner. That's the only thing he probably really cares about.
And that's what I gotta wonder what the dude said to him. He's heard. If he listens as much as he says he does, and he looks as much as he says he does, he's seen and heard everything. Like, that's what baffles me is, what did the dude say? Because it also can't have been the first time he's been.
Well, it don't matter with liquid courage. It don't matter with liquid courage, man. Liquid courage, after a couple of sips and you sitting up in that booth and you're there, you're getting beat 26-0. Bryce looking like he was looking, the defense looking like they were looking. This guy could have said anything.
I guess he knows that, like, what's going to happen to him. What consequences he actually going to incur for doing it.
If I'm being
$300,000.
Honest though,
I'll write that check right now.
I'm being so real. He should be suspended for a year from games.
Oh yeah,
because that's
at least from road games.
At least from road games, because I'm like, bro, that's so. Because if I go anywhere and just throw a drink on somebody, bro, like, just think as a normal person, if you just win,
that's assault. That's assault.
It is.
Bro,
that's assault. That's assault.
You cannot get away with that. And now the owners could do it. They could each individually go, "Hey, you're banned from my stadium," and there's nothing he could do about it because it's their building.
Games, like you said, road games. He should definitely not be allowed in these buildings. I'm so for it, because I'm like, it's just not even because I dislike the guy. It's just that's just unacceptable from anybody. If I were to just go up and just throw a drink on somebody,
they suspend, like we said, they suspend players and coaches at the drop of a hat for things that, if we're being honest, only affect them. For victimless things that only have any sort of effect on them directly. And he sat there, like we said. I mean, if he was a different man, or honestly, if that guy was a good 2 feet closer, it could have been much worse than a drink in his face.
It could have got way worse.
It could have been, because he knows he has security in his back. He knows he's got nothing to lose, per se, unless the guy then, sues him or press charges. But also, you're going to lose that battle, and if you press charges or you try to sue.
If you go to civil suit route, you can get you a bag. I think.
But the last thing I want to talk about, I mean, I don't necessarily want to harp on the act. The last thing I want to say about it is the lack of empathy and the lack of apology. I think for me is the biggest thing, right? Like, it's one thing to do the act in the state of a moment with emotion and all of that, and then say, you know what, I made a mistake. I should have never done that. That's not who I am. That's not what I want our organization to be known for. Did he say any of that? Did he show any attrition? No. The dude said, "Oh, yeah, I'm very passionate about my organization, and I accept the fine that has been levied upon me by the NFL." That's it.
You hit the nail right in the head there. Right in the head there. He could go radio silent as long as he wants, but then once the punishment is doled out and you still don't say anything, I don't care how close to 9 to 5 hours it was, and you still don't say anything, but it's also par for the course for him, right? Like, when Cam was let go, and we've seen it not only from him, but through the social media channels that we know he has a part in. We always thought it was Matt Rule, but I got to start thinking it's more his hands on the reins. Nothing said for Cam. Cam got a what? Thank you? Right. That was it. The most emotional he was when Jerry Richardson died. That was the most, thought-out statement he had provided. Not that there had been, I guess, a, place to provide anything more, but, we've seen him time and time again provide no emotion.
Again, look, it's not surprising for me that guys with this much money and this much arrogance miss the mark when, real things are happening. When real things happen. Like you said, with the Cam thing. If you understood anything about this team before you bought it, then you know how much he meant to the city. You know how much he meant to the franchise. You would do a better job of sending him out, at least respectfully.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With this situation right here, you should understand, bro, if you... It's one of those, I'm thinking about it, if somebody just threw a drink on me, for example. Bro, I want your head, for real.
I mean, he's lucky the dude didn't crawl over the glass. You don't know what kind of guy that is. And I get you do have security, but you don't know what kind of dude he is. He's lucky he didn't crawl over the glass or crawl into the window.
Let's all remember, this is a kid's game. Like no matter what, like we say about, no matter how many times we record or talk about how much we care about, it's still a game at the end of the day. Like
you were running around throwing a dead pig
all right.
on a field.
Like, and you're upset, bro. The team is only bad because you've made it this way. Like, it's not even as if you didn't have like a hand in this being this bad. Like, this is you. This is the product you put out there.
But the question still remains. There's a good chance whatever was said to him wasn't even about the team's performance.
Bro, I swear.
Like,
I promise the way or whatever he said wasn't no worse than what anything Panthers Nation hasn't said about him to this point already.
Because unless he thinks that his actions in doing that would maybe show the fans, oh, he cares so much about the team, like he's going to physical action. But I sit there and thought, oh, he must have said something about him as a person or him as like, or his family. Like that was my first thought.
Right.
Because I wouldn't think that he...
Jack, you're a billionaire though. You're a billionaire.
Has he done anything?
Somebody saying that to you, somebody saying that to you, you already know. There's no need for me to. I lose. It's a lose-lose.
That's what I'm saying though. Like
if I say anything derogatory, I'm in trouble. If I do any action, I'm in trouble. I don't think he thought about that at all. I really think it was an emotional situation. He was probably ticked off at the way we looked on the field. People were probably saying stuff to him from the time he showed up at the stadium. They probably saying stuff to him the entire game. Everybody's liquored up by that time. It's fresh off the holiday, so people got on their brand new jerseys. So they really flossing out there in Jacksonville, and they got a better record, and they going to the playoffs, and they talking trash to us, and they saying to him, "Yeah, we came in the same year, and we whipping y'all right now." All kinds of things, and then a lack of moment of clarity, being a billionaire, being arrogant. He went through an action again. The action is what it is. I'm more concerned at the post part. It shows who his character, his integrity is, who he is in the fabric of a man. That's the problem I have.
I don't think but have we been surprised by anything that, like you said, anything you just said, like through all the actions that have led up to this point? It's really not surprising at all. Like I'm not like.
That's where I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm just surprised that he cared enough.
Right.
If it was about the team, because he hasn't done anything else to show he's cared that much. I'm serious. He hasn't done anything in his hiring, in his player development or player acquisition to show he's cared about the franchise this much. So to sit there and throw a drink on someone for supposedly what we think someone might have said about the team, that's where I'm surprised. That's where I'm going. Like maybe if it was something about him, that makes more sense.
Right.
But so that's where I'm right there with you. Like I'm not surprised, but I also am surprised in the same vein. And of course, like you said, it has the moment in itself has very little to do with what the season has been, what the on the field performance. It has very little to do in that regard, but it has much more negative implications. Like if we weren't going into a coaching hire and a GM hire, or a hopeful GM hire, it wouldn't have much of an impact.
So bad.
But
I'm telling y'all, and y'all think I'm playing every time I tweet this out. If Scott is still the GM, I will be finding a new destination.
And we
already know my destination.
We didn't even talk about like his part to play in the whole video. Like just standing there frozen like a statue was the most like it was the whole relationship personified. Like let Tepper do what he's doing. I'm gonna stand right here.
Scott stood in front of a mic just like this and told us we were going to the playoffs, bro. I ain't trying to hear nothing from Scott.
I'm
bro.
hearing
he got on his microphone and said, "We're gonna drop a quarterback in here, y'all boys, and we're gonna go crazy."
We're sitting pretty, and we are, and the worst thing is he made us believe it.
That's damn crazy. My mom said this. She's like, I told her, I was like, hey, Bryce's mom is she's like a mental therapist. So she said, well, she probably need to get into physical therapy. I know Bryce watched that game yesterday with Bam and said, I could be there right now, bro, winning.
Like, I'm serious. Like, it's just brutal. But like we said, that has. Hopefully, that will be the furthest implications. But I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that this doesn't have like a more negative impact. I'm surprised with the lack of national attention. Although actually, no, I'm not because it's the Panthers. So like we can't get anyone to talk about us for anything until it's consistent, constant. Just ridiculousness. But outside of that, last game. Playing to try to keep someone out again.
Right.
I'm hoping to see a little bit, more fire from both sides of the ball from a performance setting, and that's another thing before we end out that I think is so telling of how messed up things are. Derek Brown is a monster. Derek Brown is a ball player, but he is the most like level-headed human being I think I've ever met in a football like in a jersey, like both on and off the field. To see him get ejected, and to see Burns get ejected a few weeks earlier, like Burns is a little bit more outspoken, but he's never really done that much like extracurricular. That is incredibly telling when your two future guys who are normally pretty,
close to the
restrained are going to blows because of just how upset and frustrated they are.
Bro, it's been bad, bro. I mean, what's the tired of losing? They've been doing this for the entire career.
Yeah.
They haven't had any glimmer of hope.
Except for Shaq.
Except for Shaq. That's literally it. And J.J. Jansen.
And God bless them. I don't know how the world they are still on this organization. We pray they will be there still in the organization when we do this purge that's going to happen in the offseason. But, of course, until then, everyone stay dry and keep pounding.